I'm speaking, praise the Lord for speaking through to and through Andy, on perseverance this morning. But for those of you who are like me, and when somebody says, oh, I'm speaking on perseverance, your heart sinks because you think, oh no, another talk that's going to make me feel rubbish because I'm not very good at perseverance and it will just make me feel inadequate. And also perseverance quite often means persevering through suffering, and I'm not into suffering. I don't like suffering. Please don't stick your fingers in your ears metaphorically or physically and sing la 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 la, I can't hear you, okay? Because I'm really hoping that the Lord is going to speak in such a way this morning that it encourages you rather than condemning you, because there is no condemnation in Christ, is there? So the Lord is for you. Through whatever I say, the Lord is for you. And he's not impatient and frowning at meager efforts. He's cheering you on. He's smiling on you. All he wants is for you to come up close and learn from him. So the reason I'm up here speaking on perseverance is because a few weeks ago in the Hope Centre we were talking about resilience in leadership, and I mentioned an article that I read a few years ago which suggested that if Jonah and Jeremiah were both around today, Jonah would be plastered on the front of all the Christian magazines, like, hey, this guy is amazing. He's just been to Nineveh for 30 days and the whole city repented and they've all turned to Jesus. What an amazing ministry. And Jeremiah would be nowhere to be seen because, by contrast, he spoke to the Israelites, the people in Judah, for 40 years, and nobody listened to him. Nobody turned back to the Lord. In fact, they beat him up, they tried to kill him, they threw him in prison. Nobody listened for 40 years. But actually, who was closer to the Lord's heart? So, in both those books, God is shown as an amazing, compassionate God. I mean, go and read Jonah. It's only 3 chapters. It's really short. And the last 2 verses just blow me away, where God says to Jonah, look, you're fed up about this plant dying. Should I not care about these thousands of people? And he even mentions the cattle in Nineveh. And he says, they don't know their left hand from their right. I'm just like, what? These civilized people, they had a complex civilization, but they were aggressive and violent and not interested in the Lord. And he's like, they just don't know their left hand from their right. You know, I'm just blown away by God who's that compassionate, really. And that's the God that's asking us to come up and get close and personal. But Jonah, unfortunately, hadn't quite got the hang of that. He knew that Israel had this favoured relationship with the Lord, and he was jealous about it. He didn't want to share the Lord's compassion with the nations. And personally, I know that I can be like that. When I forget that the Lord is infinite and that he's never, ever going to run out of blessings and love for me, however many of you he blesses and loves and gets up personal with, he's never going to run out of blessings for me. He's not going to get fed up with me coming into his presence just because he's also delighting in you guys coming into his presence. So I just have to keep my eyes on him. And by contrast, Jeremiah gets it. He understands that the Lord loves him and loves these Israelites who are an utter pain in the backside, in my very humble opinion, and completely faithless, a bit like me. And his response to them is amazing. After all the horrible things they do to him, when the leader of Nebuchadnezzar's army comes to him, when the Babylonians, they've taken over Jerusalem, the leader of the army comes to Jeremiah and says, where do you want to go in the empire? You can go anywhere. And Jeremiah says, I'll stick with the Jews. I mean, personally, I'd be like, well, I'm out of here. I've told them for 40 years, and now they've got the consequences of their rubbishy accents, and I'm off for a holiday at the beach. You know, they can suck it themselves. But Jeremiah's heart is like the Lord. He's like, no, I'm not giving up on these people. I'm sticking with them. And I'm like, okay, Lord, I really want that kind of heart. I want to be like Jeremiah. So he's one of my heroes. And he actually illustrates kind of what we have to persevere at. We have to persevere at getting up close and personal with the Lord's heart and receiving his love in order that we can overflow out to the kingdom. So let's have a quick look at Hebrews, the beginning of Hebrews 12. And I'm reading it from the Message version because I think it gives out very clearly the kind of message that I'm trying to say. But again, don't be discouraged by this. Remember, the Lord is for you. He's pleased with you all the way. So I'm reading right from the beginning of chapter 12, 1 to 13. So you may remember that chapter 11 is all about all the heroes of the faith in the Old Testament. And so Paul or whoever says, do you see what this means? All these pioneers who blazed the way, all these veterans cheering us on, it means we'd better get on with it. Strip down, start running, and never quit. No extra spiritual fat, no parasitic sins. Keep your eyes on Jesus, who both began and finished this race we're in. Study how he did it, because he never lost sight of where he was headed, that exhilarating finish in and with God. He could put up with anything along the way, cross, shame, whatever, and now he's there in the place of honour, right alongside God. When you find yourselves flagging in your faith, go over the story again, item by item, that long litany of hostility he ploughed through. That will shoot adrenaline into your souls. In this all-out match against sin, others have suffered far worse than you. So say nothing of what Jesus went through, all that bloodshed. So don't feel sorry for yourselves, or have you forgotten how good parents treat children and that God regards you as his children? My dear child, don't shrug off God's discipline, but don't be crushed by it either. It's the child he loves that he disciplines. The child he embraces, he also corrects. God is educating you. That's why you must never drop out. He's treating you as dear children. This trouble you're in isn't punishment, it's training, the normal experience of children. Only irresponsible parents leave children to fend for themselves. Would you prefer an irresponsible God? We respect our own parents for training and not spoiling us. So why not embrace God's training so that we can truly live? While we were children, our parents did what seemed best to them. But God is doing what is best for us, training us to live God's holy best. At the time, discipline isn't much fun. It always feels like it's going against the grain. Later, of course, it pays off handsomely, for it's the well-trained who find themselves mature in their relationship with God. So don't sit around on your hands. No more dragging your feet. Clear the path for long-distance runners so no one will trip and fall, so no one will step in a hole and sprain an ankle. Help each other out and run for it. So I think I've just got 3 kind of points that I want to pull out of that. And the first one is, so how and why do we persevere? And like all good Sunday school classes, the answer to both those questions is Jesus. So we persevere because we want to see Jesus. So we fix our whole lives. When the Bible talks about our eyes being fixed, it tends to mean your heart and everything. So we fix our whole everything on Jesus. And rather than, we know, don't we? We're here because we know that it's not worth trying to fix our lives on health, wealth, happiness and beauty and popularity and all the stuff the world goes after. But sometimes, well, certainly I don't know about you, but sometimes I can get hooked on fixing my eyes on a big fat ministry, on being Jonah rather than Jeremiah. And I was reading something the other day which talked about how Moses, when he was early on leading the people out of Egypt and into Israel in the desert, how the Lord said to him, right, I've had it. You take these people onto the promised land, but I'm not coming with you. And Moses got it. He said, no. I don't want to go to the promised land if you're not coming. He understood that the point was not the promised land, not the blessings of God, but God himself. And it really struck me that, of course, that is original sin. Original sin was Adam and Eve wanted all the blessings of God, but they didn't actually want to bother with the relationship with God. They wanted all those blessings without God. And I know I'm really conscious of that now in my life, that I love his peace, I love his joy. I love it when things go right in ministry and people are blessed. But I find it a real struggle to get in there and spend time with the Lord. It's a real issue. And even when I do kind of sit for a while and spend time worshipping and reading the Bible and talking to the Lord, and the Lord, blesses me, and I'm like, woohoo, and then I run away instead of pushing in further. And I've learned in worship to keep pushing in. I've learned when I'm like, I can't be bothered, or I come here on a Sunday morning or into my quiet time and I'm a bit like, I've learned to think, get over yourself, get up, worship the Lord. But now I need to learn to, when I'm like, I've got so much to do, and I've got to do this, and this, and actually I want to run away anyway. I don't know, for you guys that are still at school, when I was revising for exams, it was amazing. I used to make myself this timetable for the 2 weeks or whatever running up to exams, and I'd have it all worked out in slots, and then I would find anything that I could do to avoid the revision. Did anybody else do that? Even the washing up was more appealing than doing the revision, wasn't it? And I get a bit like that with God. Well, actually, Lord, I've got all this stuff to do, and I will see you later. But actually, of course, later never comes. So I'm now having to concentrate on training myself to say, stop it, stop running away, just get in there. Because learning to walk up personal with the Lord, to hear his heart, that's what we want. To hear his heart takes time. And there's so many other things calling for my time, and I've got to learn to say no to all those other things and take time with the Lord. Jesus said, didn't he, when Martha, who most of us busy women really a bit peeved by that story about Mary and Martha, aren't we? Because we're all Marthas. And I'm like, well, it's no good saying to her, Jesus, Martha, you're worried about so many other things. Get over it and do what Mary's doing. I'm like, but I've got the washing up to do. And I've got to take the kids for a lift here. And then there's the job to do. And the dog needs a walk. But the Lord understands your circumstances. He's not asking you to do something impossible. He's asking you to shift your priorities. Because actually, if I spend time getting up close and personal with the Lord, nobody needs more of me. They need more of Jesus flowing through me, don't they? So I might have less time to spend with everybody else, but actually, as I say, none of you need me, you need the Lord. Thank you. So, get up close with the Lord. And what helps me to do that is remembering that I'm not fighting this battle from a place of needing to earn the Lord's favour. Remarkably, and it just blows me away, I already have his favour. In my rubbish, I have the Lord's favour. You know, he looks at me and he smiles. I'm like, what? Incredible. So it's really helpful to live from this place of a grateful heart. Grateful that the God who is so powerful that he spoke the whole universe into being. He didn't have to get anybody help him. He didn't have to do a Harry Potter spell. He didn't even have to shout. He spoke and it came into being. And that God knows how many hairs I have on my head. It's just mind-blowing. So if we come into the Lord from this place of, actually, I already have your favour. You're already delighted with me. I'm not spending time with you to earn your love and pleasure. I already have it. All I'm doing is placing my cold, hard heart, as Mike Bickle, I think, said it, up against the bonfire of your love. Ooh, let's do that. I love the story of Abraham with Isaac. You know, when Abraham took Isaac up the mountain to sacrifice him, not because I'm in awe of the fact that Abraham would sacrifice something that precious for God, but because it's a story of God showing his friend what's on his heart. So Abraham knew God and was his friend. You know, God actually said, didn't he, when he was going to sort out Sodom and Gomorrah, should I go and do this without telling my friend? And so obviously he'd come to Abraham and said, come on, Abraham, let's go for a walk in the desert. Bring Isaac. I'm going to show you something that's on my heart. You know, I often say, if it was me and C.S. Lewis, I'm a huge C.S. Lewis fan, if C.S. Lewis was still alive and he rang me one day and said, hey, Sue, do you fancy coming down the pub with me? I want to tell you what's on my heart. I would be out of that door before I put the phone down. You know, so let's be like that with the Lord. But it is a spiritual battle. This is not going to come easy to you guys. Even thinking about the fact that he loves you before you've done anything that looks vaguely like it's the right thing to be doing before the Lord. He loves you. Thinking all that and getting that deep down in your soul is so counterintuitive to what the world tells you. You know, the world tells you you've got to earn it. We are not working from a place to earn the Lord's love. We're working from a place where we already have it. But we have to spend the time getting to that point, and we have to retrain our minds to see things differently. We have to look at it from the other side, and that takes time, and it takes effort. But it's so worth it. Who does not want to hear the Lord's heart? So, like the passage I read from Hebrews said, when we're in difficulties, and some of you, bless you, are persevering through really difficult things, and, you know, I salute you for persevering. Well done. Hear the Lord's well done. You know, the fact that you're here with all that I won't say a rude word, all that rubbish going on around you. Well done. I really believe that, the Lord's word to, well done, good and faithful servant, comes out over us when we're in the middle of the mess, when we're really struggling. It's not those bits when we're having a wonderful time and whooping it up. It's when we're on our knees, crawling along to keep going and hanging in there by the skin of our teeth. That's when the Lord comes to you and says, well done, good and faithful servant. So may you all hear the well done today. Well done. But we need to learn to look a different way. Corinthians 2 verses 4 and chapter 4 verses 17 and 18 talk about eternity and fixing our eyes on eternity. We need to see things from the other side. Now, I'm not just talking about pie in the sky when you die. I mean, it will be pretty amazing when we die and get to heaven. But we get to live so much better life down here, full of his peace and joy. We just have to learn to look at things from the other side so that, like the passage said, when we're going through difficulties, it's not pointless. None of our suffering is pointless. It's about the Lord refining us so that we're in the right place when we get to him in heaven. We're practicing for heaven now. That passage, those two verses in 2 Corinthians 4 talk about our light and momentary troubles. And I know for many of you, they don't feel light or momentary. They're producing in us a weight of glory. So keep going, keep going. Oh, 5 minutes. Okay, so we may have to work some stuff out. That's what the discipline, the training is all about. We've all got rubbish we've got to work out. For me, this thing of spending time with the Lord is a huge thing I've got to learn. And also I realised very recently, another thing is when I do something well, I'm like, and people say, oh, well done, Sue, that's really good. I'm like, but my focus is on that the people have said well done. And what I need to do is say, oh, thanks, but turn my focus back to the Lord and say, Lord, did I do it well? Are you pleased? That's my source of approval, not you guys. Sorry, I love you. You're amazing. I'm so blessed to be in Hope Church. But you are not my source of approval. But I have to learn that. But the fact that I have these things to learn, I'm finally beginning to realise that when I come to the Lord, I don't have to grovel in and say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting it wrong again. I'm just a bit rubbish. I can come in and just exalt in him and say, thank you that you're showing me that I've got to sort all this stuff out. So when things like Jesus saying that to Martha seem a bit bonkers to you, just remember that you've got to come round and look at it from the other angle. There's something else going. Recently in our life group, we were looking through the letters of John, and there's this amazing couple of verses in the first letter of John that talk about the Lord's commands being easy. And I was like, what? The Lord's commands don't feel very easy to me. And finally I thought, it's because I'm looking at it wrong, isn't it? It's not the Bible, or it's not God that's got it wrong. It might be me. So I need to learn to see it from a different place. I've got to retrain my mind. And finally, because I'm probably running over now, really importantly, don't try and persevere on your own. You have to keep going with other people. Find some people that you can rely on. And when you're in that place of crawling and virtually at a stop, reach out and say, I can't even worship now. Worship with me, for me, over me. And we need to learn to do that for each other. My favourite picture of the church is the Roman turtle. It's probably got a proper specific name, but that thing where the Roman army used to move forward with the shields up at the front, down the sides, round the back, and the guys in the middle would hold the shields up over the top. And when one of the guys that was on the outside holding the shields got wounded, they would drop back into the middle and somebody else would come and raise the shield up. Let us learn to raise our shields up around those of our number who are struggling. But this is going to take vulnerability, guys, and honesty and commitment. So I urge you not to take offence when you get bashed by somebody, because I'm sorry, but that is going to happen, because we're all numpties crashing around into each other, basically, and somehow the Lord does something amazing in the middle of all that. Don't ask me how. So don't limp away wounded and take offence. Sort it out. When that happened to me, I was so blessed by a few really good people around me. He said, come on, get up again. Keep going, work this out, forgive, go back to the person, speak to them, work it out. And I tell you, such a blessing to be able to turn up at a meeting and think, oh, their car's here. Instead of thinking, oh, no, their car's here, they're going to be here. I think, oh, their car's here, that's great. I can go in and give them a hug. Such a blessing, guys. Work it out. And don't allow jealousy, either envy of each other, to creep in. I really struggle with that. As I say, when you guys get blessed and you're doing something amazing, I'm a bit like, not fair. You know, but you're looking at it. Let me encourage you, you're looking at it from the wrong point of view. I've been hanging around in church circles for far too long, decades. And it was only a couple of years ago that I realised I had a testimony. I seriously thought I didn't have a testimony, because my life has been very nice. You know, nothing very dramatic has happened to me. I thought I didn't have a testimony. And it's only very recently that I realised my testimony is actually this amazing, gracious God who grabbed hold of a scrawny little kid in the back end of Beyond, even the locals called it out in Wales, where I lived, and put his hand on me when I was still in primary school. And through all my, wiggling about and being useless and forgetting him, his hand has been on me. It's just incredible. But for those of you that are thinking, well, I don't have that, do not believe the lie that the Lord is not interested in you, that he's forgotten you, he's overlooked you, you're left out. Do not believe the lie. You just haven't seen the testimony yet. You just haven't seen it, but the Lord's hand is on you, otherwise you would not be here. Proverbs tells us that we have many plans in our heart, but it's the Lord's way that prevails. Guys, you are just not that clever. The Lord has got it. So let's persevere together. Come with me up close and personal with the Lord. Show me how to do it. I need you to teach me how to do it. So let's persevere together. Amen. Amen.